Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Poultry Site, and today we're here with Dr. Fernando Ruiz-Jimenez. He is a technical services veterinarian with Zoetis on the poultry team. Thanks for being with us today, Fernando.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Very good. And today we're here at IPPE in Atlanta, and we're going to talk today about infectious bronchitis and layers. So let's start there. How does infectious bronchitis present in layers?
Okay, so when I think about infectious bronchitis infections, I like to think about I call it the 3 R's. So they have different presentations. The first R being respiratory, the second R being renal or in the kidneys, and the third R, the reproductive system. When we talk about the layers, usually we have the respiratory presentation where you see upper respiratory signs like conjunctivitis, tracheitis, some mucus from the sinuses, or the reproductive presentation, which presents as something we call false layer syndrome. And also during lay, you can see like eggshell issues, wrinkled eggs, etc. So that's kind of like the presentations that we tend to see in the layers.
Very good. And how do you determine which IBV serotypes to include in a vaccination program?
Well, yeah, that's a question we get a lot, and it's really hard to have a general answer for that. But speaking in the U.S., like we have a general vaccination for IBV where MAS is like the basic serotype, MAS and CON, and then like 20 years ago, the Arkansas serotype was included in the vaccination programs, so they were falling short. They included Arkansas, and they saw like huge improvements on the performance of the birds and the protection for the disease, so they just kept it. But now with the new variants coming up, like a few years back, we have now Georgia 08, we're speaking about 1639, so people are trying to look for maybe some new strains that they can include in their vaccination programs to make them more effective against this, ever-changing disease.
Right.
Yeah.
It's evolving, right? What's the best way to monitor IBV in the field?
So that actually kind of is related to the last question. So you need to know what you have out there if you want to make changes in your vaccination program that will have an impact, a real impact. So you got to be out there monitoring, like if you want to have a passive surveillance, maybe you don't have a lot of issues, so you just go out there, make some PCRs in the pullet house, in the lake house, and just get an idea of what's the bronchitis serotypes that are kind of like in the field.
Right.
And maybe if you're having issues related to bronchitis and you find any new variants that you think you're not protecting your birds against, then probably you can include that variant. So sometimes people would go and do surveillance and they find this new variant, and then you ask them like, are you having any issues like eggshell? No, but this is coming, and I'm like, well, I don't know if you really need to change your vaccination program. The virus may be out there, but if you're not having any issues, then why changing it? The vaccination program is working, so leave it that way. If you're having issues, then that's a different story, and that's where you can be active in changing something.
Right, that's when you know it's time for change, right?
Exactly.
Very good. Have you done any recent trials looking at protection against IBV variants using different vaccines?
Yeah, so I mentioned briefly on the first question about false layer syndrome. So that's caused by a 1639 infection early in the chicken's life. So between the first 2 weeks, if a 1639 comes in and the chick is not protected, then the virus tends to go to the reproductive tract, and it'll cause, basically the oviduct will be filled with fluid, so they won't be able to lay the egg. The problem is that you cannot tell, like the hen is healthy, it looks perfectly normal, but it's never laying. So, you just have like low lays, low peaks, and you don't know why, and then, it's hard to kind of tell.
Right.
So the usual program to preventing that, they do a mass vaccination at day of age with a mass serotype. That has helped a lot, and pretty much across the board in the U.S. they do that. But we've been wondering what would happen if we include 2 serotypes instead of 1 at that day of age spray vaccination. So we run a trial with a MAS plus ARC vaccine, and we followed that. We checked for infection protection against internal organs and tracheal pathology. And then we saw really good results. Actually, the mass-ARC combination gave a better protection of the reproductive tract, which is like what we're focused on, and then also respiratory tissues. So, the mass-ARC combination opens the door for maybe improving that early protection,
Right.
but also you can build in your booster vaccinations, you have a broader baseline. So instead of just doing in the boosters, you will be boosting 2 serotypes instead of 1. So maybe that'll have more implications in the long-term protection against bronchitis.
Very good, very good. What should be the producer's focus to achieve a successful vaccination for IBV?
All right, so that is critical whenever you talk about any vaccination, because you can have the best vaccine in the world, but if you don't apply it right or do it right, then it won't be worth it. So what you have to focus a lot is how the people are applying that vaccine, and that is like the whole process, starting from when it comes to your farm. Is it cold? Is it, like in the conditions that it should be? Then go track the whole thing. Where you store it? Do you have are you recording the temperatures of your fridges? Are you putting it right away on the fridge? Are you keeping the cold chain? Then when the date for the vaccination comes, then okay, is the people putting it in a cooler? And we see so many mistakes that can be easily corrected, but people just overlook them. So just go over the whole application process, and you can usually find out something that can be improved, and then of course not only bronchitis but any vaccination would work better if you.
The devil's in the details, right, with this kind of program?
Absolutely, and we do a lot of vaccine evaluations, and really the simplest details are usually the bigger problems. So simple fix, just train your crew. Again, focus on the small details, and you can improve your vaccination.
It really seems to help I've heard a lot of people say even training experienced people is really important. Just that reminder of the process, right, is always so important to keep people on track.
Yeah, and again, we do training of crews, and they do their job, but sometimes they don't understand why they're doing it or the importance of it. So when we go out there, I tend to tell them, like, guys, you're laying the foundations for the health of these 100,000 birds flock. So this is important, and in the end, it'll bring eggs, meat. So it's really critical to stay on top of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all the information today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
This is Sarah Mikesell with the Poultry Site.